Parents of Reddit. What is the worst thing you have ever done in front of your teenage kid? From jaw-dropping confessions to moments they wish they could erase, stick around. You won't believe what some parents admitted in front of their own kids. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button, because we share the kind of stories you can't stop thinking about. Story 1. I haven't drunk much alcohol over the last 10 years, but about 3 years ago I had a few too many. Kids were 13 and 16. We'd gone to a relative's barbecue which was walking distance from home, hadn't planned on drinking, but that's the way the night went. Eldest went home early, so the boy and I wandered back after midnight. I remember fighting with them in the living room. The next thing I remember is being in bed feeling sick. I was sick where I lay and tried to get up but couldn't, and thought, well, I've messed the bed up already, I may as well just carry on here. Then I got up to have a shower, opposite end of the house. Kids woke up. I didn't have a towel, so I ran back through to my room in the buff and collapsed on the floor. I woke up hours later. The kids had covered me up, stripped and cleaned my bed, washed all my sheets, dried them and remade my bed. They still bring it up, remember when Mum was drunk and threw up over herself? Yeah. Don't talk about all the times I wasn't drunk and was being a good mum, eh? I like to think of it as a deterrent. Story 2. I was a college freshman and had come home for winter break, and the boyfriend had just flown in to visit. He was going to meet my parents for the first time ever. I was out giving him a tour of my hometown when I got a call from my dad. All he said was, "Pumpkin, get back the house and check out this big SS fire I made." I drove us home after he spam called me 4 more times and kept yelling about how cool the fire was. I rarely ever saw my dad drink when I was growing up. He'd always been hyper-responsible and straight-laced. He's exactly like Hank Hill, except with a different southern accent, and he's a nerdy electrical engineer instead of a propane salesman. I came home to find my dad and his brother blackout drunk, stumbling around a huge bonfire in the backyard looking for more sticks to throw in the pit, holding their own half-empty bottles of whiskey, and wearing matching cowboy hats. I have no idea where they got the cowboy hats. My then-boyfriend introduced himself. And instead of asking him about how his flight was, how school is going, where we went that afternoon, or any of the normal pleasantries you'd ask your daughter's boyfriend, my dad blurts out, "Have I ever told you all about the one and only time I ever did cocaine?" He launched into a story about how he did lines of coke in a hot tub with the local weather lady at a community theatre cast party in the 80s. Then he and my uncle spent hours telling us crazy shit they did before my cousins and I were born. And then they called my future husband a pussy for not doing whiskey shots. Story 3. Went to my 12-year-old son's end-of-season dinner for his sports team. Just an informal get-together at a local family pizza place on a Friday night. One of the parents brought multiple cases of wine with him, wine salesman, and we all went a bit nuts. I don't drink much these days, so it hit me extra hard. Apparently when we were walking home I was hiding in the bushes, then leaping out at random people pretending to be a Nosferatu-type vampire and hissing at them. Hissing. My poor kid was mortified. P.S. I'm a hobbit-sized woman, so the people passing weren't scared by me, just bemused or annoyed. Story 4. When I was 13 or 14 my mom was deep into her meth addiction, but I didn't realize at the time. One night I had my best friend over and my mom brought us, along with my little brother who was 4ish, to pick up money from my stepdad. After we get there and she runs in, she comes back out and hands something to my friend and asks her to put it in her bra until we get home, since she was driving without insurance and a suspended license. We get home, friend gives it back, we forget about it. Anyway, 10 years later we realize my mom had actually given her the meth to hold onto in case she was pulled over and searched or arrested. So that was something. Edit. Well, holy shit. My mom is fine now. She hit her 3 years sober this year, so we're really proud of her. She's still kind of mess, but I love her anyway. For all the things she did when I was growing up and the situations she let and encouraged me to get into. It's amazing I've grown up to be the person I am, and same for my little brother. I'm incredibly proud of her, and while I acknowledge the fucked up shit, I forgive her, and I think that's all she really wants in return. Most recovering addicts just want to know they're still loved and that they're forgiven. Story 5. Friend's mum in HS used to get drunk, pop pills, sometimes hurt herself, on purpose or just from falling downstairs, nearly every night. He wasn't in a good place. I used to tell him I wanted to come and watch TV at his place because his TV was better, But it was just so he had someone to help whilst he inevitably called the ambulance or police. Sometimes she would wander off. She eventually sorted herself out and became an amazing grandmother. And I got to watch a shit ton of music videos on the nights when she stayed drunk in her room. I miss the 80s. Story 6. As my mum is near incapable of using a computer, I'll share on her behalf. One night she got ridiculously drunk and came home. She called me from her bedroom and said she had something to show me, and I reluctantly go to her. She's in her bedroom holding a thick translucent purple vibrator, and she says to me in slurred speech, "This is what mummy uses when she's lonely." To do this day, I don't know WTF she was thinking when she did this. Story 7. Friend was the parent. Found him in complete shock, saying he was trying to stay calm, but knowing he'd just messed up with his teenage daughter. Before breakfast at the start of what was going to be a non-stop busy day, he decided to shoot a foreplay text to his girlfriend about some kinky thing he was going to do to her that night. At the table he decided to sneak it in while his daughters went into the kitchen to grab the food. Only he accidentally sent it to one of them, and it notified on her phone as they were walking back to the table. He said the girls sat, and the one asked why he just texted her. He said, As he quizzically watched her eyes process what she read, look at him with betrayal, and then his heart slammed to a stop. He realized what happened too late, or he said he would have dove across the table and knocked the phone out of her hand. Cue a profuse apology and long address to many tearful questions about how daddy wasn't lying that every man should respect women. It's just that some women want to have certain things done and said when it's only supposed to be a private matter between two consenting adults. She now is over it, but from then on he went from being her hero to just an any man. Story 8. This happened to my husband. We had a whole gaggle of teenage kiddos over at our house one Friday night. My husband had a few beers, and then snuck off behind the garage to have a smoke. He doesn't smoke in front of me since I quit. He had bummed a really strong cig, and it made him super dizzy. Just as he was keeling over, a group of teenagers came along the path just in time to see him fall over onto the lawnmower. He pretended to be getting ready to mow, which made them howl with laughter. They still talk about that time Dad fell and tried to cover it up by saying he was going to mow at 11 p.m. Story 9. When I was 13, my stepdad was an alcoholic. He was the kind who everyone knew had a problem but would always console my mom with stories about how he's getting better and not to worry. Well, I'm coming home from school that fateful afternoon. I walk in the door and my mom gets up from the couch, starts a beeline straight towards me, all while screaming, "What did you do?" To my only remark was, "I have no idea." She gets right up in my face and starts to blame me for all the alcohol missing from the basement. We had a decent stash. The bottles were all empty and she had just now noticed that this hadn't always been the case. Apparently my stepdad was the first on her blame list for this, however, per the aforementioned consoling, she believed him when he told her it wasn't him and went on to blame her 13-year-old son for drinking upwards of 10 handles of hard liquor. I lost a lot of respect for my parents that day. That was 12 years ago. My mom still thinks I did it. They've since gotten a divorce. I still love my mom, but I'm very aware of her mental abilities and cognition. Story 10. When I was like 12, I was spending the night at a friend's house. I started feeling sick around midnight, so I went to ask his dad, who usually stayed up playing video games on their PC, to call my parents to come pick me up. When I walked out, he was furiously beating his meat with some generic as fuck porn on the monitor. I decided to just go back to bed. It's not that I think having a wank is bad, but when your kid has their 12-year-old friend over, maybe postpone that shit, or do it in a room with a lock or a door. Story 11. My husband left us when my daughter was 9. I was single until last year when left she high school and went to college. When she was 15, she was supposed to be staying the night at a friend's house, so I had a friend of my own over. We got a little drunk and started hooking up on the couch, and I got his pants down and he had the biggest rig I've ever seen in person. I went down on him. And then my daughter came home early because her friend got sick. She walked in on me with this guy's giant penis in my mouth and went, "Mom, what the fuck? Holy shit," and ran out of the room. We were all mortified. Story 12. Shit, I am so late to the party, but... My dad always tells the story of when he was 6 or 7 and his father, my grandpa, came home from a rowdy night of drinking. My dad says my grandpa sidled slowly into the kitchen with a rope in his hand, and my grandma, who was sitting at the kitchen table, asked what he had done. He then led a miniature pony into the kitchen. The pony was named Speedy. He bit like a motherfucker and would never let anyone ride him, and one day he ran off. They lived around a lot of farmland, so we like to think someone took him in and got the devil out of him. Story 13. I'm the teenager in this scenario. My mom was addicted to painkillers while I was growing up. Like, really addicted, to the point where she would have regular overdoses. Guess who had to deal with the aftermath of those overdoses? The same guy that missed at least 7 days a school year to sit with her in the hospital, while she was in an overdose-induced coma. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if she'd have died by now without me. Story 14. Not the worst thing in life, but I do get a little angry behind the wheel. I was driving with my son, and when other drivers do incredibly inconsiderate or just plain stupid things, I feel the overwhelming need to see who the F this person is. I slam my horn and sometimes hit the gas a bit to catch up and overtake them, give them a look, or shout at them, often through a closed window. Now my son is, and has always been, as many kids, observant. We'd watch shows together, and ever since he was small, I'd notice him watch me laugh, then look back at the TV, then back at me. He was building an internal library of what humor was. In the same sense, I see him observing me on the road, and I can't help but feel ashamed at my anger and response to it. I need to be better for my boy's sake. Story 15. My mom would regularly threaten to throw me and my sister out of the house because we wouldn't clean as she expected, but wouldn't do herself, from the time I was 8 and little sis was 7. Once every couple of years, Mom would actually hand us trash bags, tell us to pack our things and get out. She would say, "I don't know where you're going, but you need to get out of my house. You won't live by my rules, you won't live under my roof." Cue the crying and the sobbing, the pleading, etc. Once we had our trash bags full of stuff, she shoved us out the door and we would sit on the front porch trying to figure out our next step. She would come out, within 10 minutes, berate us some more, then told us we were not to go talk to any of the adults we knew. "I told them already about this and they know not to help you." When we would finally start leaving the front porch, she would scream at us and drag us back inside. "Where do you think you're going? You can't live on your own. You can't take care of yourselves. Just do what I tell you in the house and you won't have to live on the streets." She stopped doing this when I was 13 and finally caught on to her game. She had us pack our stuff up, and I made a fort in the front yard. Funnily enough, my mom is now begging the both of us to move to the new state she, my dad, and my 2 younger siblings moved to, because she needs us there, and we're being selfish. Story 16. My dad is a recovering alcoholic. Once when I was a teenager he came home drunk and it was just my younger brother, his friend, and me home. He wanted to take my brother to the store with him for whatever reason, but I wouldn't let him cause he was drunk. I was standing between him and my brother, and he got mad that I wouldn't let my brother go with him, so he hit me. Before that he had only spanked me when I was a lot younger and had it coming. It didn't really hurt, maybe it was the adrenaline. At the time it just hurt more realizing that he would actually hit me. Besides this one incident, he would always tell us how much he loved us when he was drunk, so things could have been a lot worse growing up. Story 17. My mother, not me. I'm in my mid-30s and just very recently had an epiphany regarding this incident. Speaking with my brother last week, he shared he realized the same thing about himself. My parents lost twins to a FIS when I was about 8. It sent my mother into a spiraling depression that resulted in rampaging alcoholism, a new baby that was so coddled he wasn't weaned from a bottle until he was 4, and ultimately a divorce. The culmination of this occurred when I was in high school. There was a new stepdad in the picture who was not a nice man, and he took every advantage of my mother's issues. He got her hooked on heroin and was encouraging her to drink herself to death. She'd been hospitalized for alcohol poisoning several times by this point, but there's a night I will never forget. About 2 in the morning, my mother starts screaming from her room. It's the scream of someone who is dying. I went in there, and she'd vomited blood all over the bed. Stepdad wasn't there. I'm not sure if this was during a period when he'd been kicked out, in jail, or had just fucked off. It was before he was murdered in prison, that's all I remember. I called 911, because what in the holy fuck was even going on? Paramedics got there surprisingly quickly, and I let them in and stood by not sure what to do. I stood in the door watching as they tried to get a line in her arm, but for whatever reason they missed, and blood sprayed all over the wall. I honestly believed my mother was going to die right there. My youngest brother got placed in my dad's custody after that, but since he was only the youngest's biological father, myself and my other brother stayed in that hellhole until we were out of high school, more or less. Somehow the stepdad was able to get me into foster care shortly after this, and I still do not know how. My grandparents found out when they returned home from vacation a month later and took custody of us until my mother divorced this guy. It took her 6 months to decide we were worth it. The epiphany I had was that I can go out and drink at a bar or a party and have a great time, come home and crash happy. If I have even a beer at home, it's not enjoyable and I get really sick after. I've had a 6-pack of cider in the fridge for months, because while I really like that cider, I don't want to touch it. Apparently my brother has the same sort of visceral reaction, but hadn't ever managed to put the two together until last week. Story 18. My dad was drunk, as usual. Raging alcoholic. Takes out his guns to mess around with, as usual. He's showing me how to take them apart, safely disarm and remove bullets from the chamber. I was about 7 years old. During these times he loved to mess around and dry fire empty guns at the TV, ceiling, and even sometimes the dog. I probably dry fired empty guns at the dog as well before, knowing it was empty and as a sick joke. My dad's humor was twisted and I copied his behavior sometimes as a kid, not knowing it was wrong. He hands me a 9mm with no magazine, says it's empty. I fucked around with the gun for a little, but for whatever reason never pulled the trigger. I decided to pull back the slide, and a round popped out. There was a chambered round. Even as a child, I freaked out. I knew exactly what could have happened, and in that moment I lost all faith in my father. I screamed at him that there was a chambered round in it. That I could have killed him or the dog. He laughed at me. After that, I never really shot my dad's guns or handled them, even though it was such a major part of our relationship before that. I just lost so much trust. That moment gave me some weird form of PTSD. I can't even think about it without starting to panic. I just replay a scene of me accidentally shooting my dad's dog or him over and over. Like so many young kids end up doing because their parents are irresponsible with guns. Story 19. Kids weren't teens, but I fear it will still hang over them when they are. My ex and I were getting married until I discovered an ongoing, 10-month affair with his best man's fiancée 5 months to the day of our wedding. I struggled to cope really badly in the beginning, so my parents decided to take me and my boys away on holiday for the dates of the wedding and honeymoon to give me a break and a new memory for that date. I was doing mostly okay by the time he holiday rolled round. I had gotten to that "I'm doing better without you" stage of the breakup. On the night of the wedding date I had a few drinks with dinner and there was a playoff game on in the sports bar that I wanted to watch. My mum offered to take the boys back to my room and put them to bed, our rooms were adjoining, and my dad offered to stay with me and watch the football. We had a good few drinks, I was tipsy but in control, just enjoying myself, and then beep beep, my phone went off. A text from the ex. Who, by the way, moved in with her from the moment I booted him out. Hi, how are you? Was just thinking about you and today and how I fucked up. I miss you. Don't know what the point is of this text, but I wanted you to know. I was livid. How dare he, on that date, knowing I was on holiday, to forget about what that date was. So I knocked back a few shots, then a few more and a few more, until my dad realized something had changed and he escorted me back to my room. I don't remember leaving the bar. I don't remember my dad pushing me into the 2 double beds that me and the boys, 8 and 6, had pushed together. I do remember coming round just enough to lean over the side of the bed to puke in the middle of the night. I vaguely remember a small hand on my back and a whisper of "Shall we get grandma?" The next morning I woke up with that disgusting hangover feeling and vomit hair stuck to my face. I slowly remembered being sick and then looked behind me to the boys. They started asking if I was okay, why I'd been sick. The little one said it had scared him. The eldest had tried to tuck me back in and settle me back to sleep after it. The shame was immediate. I was disgusted with myself. At breakfast with my parents they told them what had happened as my dad chuckled at me for being so hungover. At the time it seemed a bit funny to everyone but me that I'd got so drunk and ended up suffering so badly the next day. Now, a year and a half later, the little one always says don't drink any wine, you'll get drunk again if we go out for a meal and I have a glass. They both tell people about it with such clarity if anyone mentions being drunk or drinking. I'm still ashamed to the core of my actions that night. I'm disgusted that the boys saw me in that condition and that the following day they had to put up with a zombie mum because I was so wrecked. I hate the thought of them carrying this incident as they grow older.